Hi guys, we are starting your next topic, which is on decimals. And for this particular set of notes, you will be learning about terminating decimals. But before we go into how to solve terminating decimals, I first want to make sure that you know how to identify the three different types of decimals. So with your notes at the top of the page, you'll see that there are three types. The first one ends, which means it has 0 for the remainder. And these are the ones that we are going to be working with today. These types of decimals are called terminating decimals. The next types of decimals are the ones that continue in a pattern forever. So there is a pattern. So you'll see that 0.333333, and it goes on in a pattern, and 3 is repeating. Or sometimes you'll see like 191919, and it goes on, but in a pattern. These types of decimals are called repeating decimals. And then there are such things as decimals that go on and on and on, but they don't repeat. Okay, these are known as irrational numbers, and a very common example that you'll hear is pi. So pi is a decimal that goes on and on and on, but it does not repeat. Pi is also an irrational number. These types of decimals are just called non-repeating decimals. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and practice converting a fraction into a decimal, and the ones that we're going to be working with today are terminating decimals. So they will end. You'll have a 0 as a remainder, and I'll show you what I mean here in these examples below. So first, let's figure out how we're going to do it. The first thing that you need to do is, if your fraction is a mixed number, then you need to turn it into an improper fraction. And the way that you do that is taking the bottom, multiply it by the whole number, and then you add it to the top. And remember, your denominator is the denominator that's already in the fraction. So for example, if I had 1 and 3/4, I would do 1 times 4, then plus 3. So 4 plus 3 is 7, so this would equal 7 over 4 as your improper fraction. 4 was the denominator, so 4 stays the denominator in that fraction. Every fraction is going to represent a division problem. You'll set up using long division. Top number goes on the inside or underneath your box, and your bottom number goes on the outside for your long division. So your numerator always goes on the inside, while your denominator is always the number on the outside. Okay, you will keep dividing until you have 0 for the remainder, because these are what's called terminating decimals. Okay, so I'm going to go over 3 examples with you, and then you'll be able to practice. Okay, the first example is 2/5. So remember that the numerator is what goes inside the box, and your denominator is what's on the outside when you're doing your long division. Now, since we are working into changing them into decimals, what I always do is add a decimal at the end of my number, and you can add as many zeros as you want. Okay, 5 cannot go into 2, so I'm going to put a 0 above my 2. I'm going to bring up my decimal. 5 can go into 20. It can go into it 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 minus 20 is 0. So since we got 0 as the remainder, that means that this decimal is terminated. It means it's done, it ends. And 2/5 equals 0.4. Okay, now I have a mixed number. Just like we practiced before, you have to do bottom times the whole plus the top. So I'm going to do 3 times 10, which is 30, plus the top, which is 37. So this is equal to 37 over 10. Now remember, the numerator goes inside the box while the denominator is on the outside. So what that means is 37 is inside the box because that's the top number, and 10 is on the outside because that's the bottom number. Since we're changing these into decimals, I'm going to add a decimal and some zeros. Okay, 10 can't go into 3, so I could put a 0 up there, but I'm just going to move on to the next number. 10 can go into 37 3 times, which is 30. Minus that is 7. I'm going to bring up my decimal and then bring down my next number, which happens to be 0. 10 can now go into 70 7 times, which is 70. Minus that is 0. So we have a remainder of 0 now, which means this decimal is terminated, which also means that 37 over 10, or 3 7/10, is 3.7. Okay. Then the last one is a negative 11 5/8. So once again, this is a mixed number, and we're going to have to change it into an improper fraction. So I'm going to do bottom times the whole plus the top. So 8 times 11 is 88, plus 5 is 89, 90, 91, 92, 93 over 8. And it's a negative. So once again, the numerator goes inside the box while the denominator is on the outside. And I have to remember that this is a negative value, so I'm going to put a negative up there so that I don't forget. And then since it's a decimal, I'm going to add a decimal and some zeros. 8 can go into 9 once, so minus that is 1. Bring down my 3. 8 can go into 13, but only once, which is 8. Minus that is 5. Bring up your decimal, bring down your 0. 8 can go into 50 6 times, which is 48. Bring down your 2. 8 can go into that twice, which is 16. Minus that is 4. Bring down your 0. 8 can go into that 5 times, which is 40. 40 minus 40 is 0, so we get 0 as the remainder, which means our answer is going to be negative 11.625. Those are all examples of terminating decimals because when we divide, we eventually get 0 as the remainder. Okay, now you guys are going to go ahead and practice.